Good morning. Good morning.
Hello.
How's everybody doing today? Welcome to day 2 of Earth. Woohoo! Been a good show. I'm trying to get this voice back in order already. It's already gone. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Pooch. I own a small company called RepRap. We make fine filament furniture. And every week, with my partner in crime here, Andrew from 3D Glue,
hey everyone.
The lead scientist of the Empire of Sticky, we do a podcast called Maker That Money. So a lot of these shows are very focused on, obviously making and all the cool things that we like. And I always felt like there was a good opportunity to talk about maker entrepreneurship in particular. So a lot of people kind of get their start here. I know we got our start at this show. I know you got your start at this show.
Yeah, we started right here.
A little closer.
Yeah, sure.
So this whole podcast that we started doing started as just a phone call.
Yep.
A series of phone calls between Andrew and I said, even if this seems like interesting information, let's just record it. And we've been doing it now. We have 35 episodes or something like that. I think this might be 33 or 34, something like that.
Somewhere around there.
So today we're just going to try to record a live version of what we do every Friday. If this is of interest to you, if you have maker entrepreneurial interests and whatnot, we always disclaim that we don't pretend to have it all figured out. But we do enjoy sharing our journey, and it's a call-in show, so people can call and ask questions.
Yep.
We also record live every Friday on YouTube, so if you just want to get on the chat, you can do it that way.
Yep.
Today's episode, we're kind of doing a bring back of a favorite, which is very appropriate to this event, and it's how to make money with 3D printing. So, just a little housekeeping before we kind of actually officially start. We only have 30 minutes for this one. We usually do 60, so we're probably going to go a little bit fast. We're not going to have an opportunity, unfortunately, to take questions at this one, but please, if you have questions, you can find us in each of our booths. Clayton, our guest today, Uncle Jesse for real, you may know him. He'll be walking around as well, too, so fantastic resource also. And here we go. You guys ready?
Woohoo!
All right. This is our first live recording of this, too, so we'll see how it goes.
It's going to be terrible.
You think so? I think it's going to be great.
It's going to be fun.
Thank you. Yeah, it's going to be fun. All right. So without further ado, welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to episode 34 of Maker That Money. I am Pooch of RepCord, and with me today,
I'm Andrew of 3D Glue.
and our special guest.
I'm Uncle Jesse. I make videos about 3D printing on the interwebs.
Very concise intro, Clayton.
Yes.
Clayton.
Thank you.
Also known as Clayton, if you want to
Yes.
call him by his birth name.
If you want to talk secret identities.
So, Clayton, we're very lucky to have you with us today because I don't know anybody out there that does both the content creator and the entrepreneurial hustle the way that you do.
I'm trying.
Yeah, and I'm hoping that today you can share some tips for us and some experiences that you've had, and maybe just give us a quick background about how you got into not just content creation, but like taking it to the next level and learning how to monetize and actually run a proper business.
Man, first of all, before I even jump into that, I love what you guys are doing because it fits perfectly. This whole discussion fits perfectly into the community because everybody's very open and shares, hey, I've got this printer, here's some mods, here's things I can do to make it work better, here's upgrades, here's just tips and tricks. And that's exactly what you guys have done here, but more on the business side of things, which is people want, like, there's no set of resources out there for people to find. We're just, as you mentioned, we're just figuring it out as we're going with this.
Yeah, and Andrew, I think you can speak to this too. That we recognize that
absolutely.
we had a kindred spirit, and we love making this community bigger by involving other people and being a resource. And because there aren't resources, what better way than to try to just make our own resources?
I mean, listen, like Pooch just said at the top, we don't have it all figured out. We're just kind of, figuring it out as we go. And we figured, hey, maybe we could talk about this and see if people find it interesting. Hopefully you learn something.
I find it hugely interesting, and it's again one of those. I'll jump into this here where it's it's a great opportunity if you have a machine or if you're interested in 3D printing. Assuming most people listening or watching this live have 3D printers, there is huge opportunities to actually turn some of the things that you're either designing or printing into something that you can make a profit of. I'm not saying that you can immediately tomorrow quit your day job, but for me, starting out, I had 3D printers on hand, and I was like, hey, how can I afford more filament for more projects? All right, well, let me turn around and try and start selling some prints online just to make enough money to
fund the hobby.
buy more, to buy another printer or buy more filament or more resin. It's the never-ending cycle of buying stuff here.
For sure. So really quick, guys, show of hands out there. How many of you guys justified the purchase of your first 3D printer thinking, like, I'm going to sell stuff to pay for this printer? All right. Just
Whoa,
so for
there's
those
a-
listening back
Wow,
after, we've got
that's great.
maybe 50% of the crowd
Yeah.
raising their hand.
Well-
Right. And I remember back in the day when I first got started, 3D Hub. You guys remember 3D Hubs? It was
Yes.
kind of a thing, and everybody's like, okay, you can put your printer at what printers you have, and then basically make yourself available to farm out parts. And I did that, and made a couple $100, but it was nothing like we expected originally. So I don't know. Maybe talk about when you first got started. Were
Yeah.
there some false starts?
Oh yeah, there's. I mean, when I first got started with it, I started with 3D printing back in 2015, and that was my idea as well. I was like, all right, well,
Right.
I can start printing small cosplay things or little trinkets that people would be interested in buying. Of course, things aren't printing correctly, or I sell things. Someone I list something, I go to ship it to them, but the printer's not working correctly, so I'm scrambling to get things printed and out to them. It's a vicious cycle, but eventually that's again way back in 2015 to 2018. But things have gotten progressively easier, in my opinion, to work with.
I agree.
Printer-wise.
Well, I'm glad you said that because the theme of today is making money in 3D printing in 2022.
Not 2015.
Not 2015, right? So what I'm hoping we can do is maybe give some of these people some actionable things.
If you're, so let me jump ahead here.
Go, jump away.
I am wildly supportive of people making content. Whatever you're making and wanting to sell, post about it online. If you're selling little trinkets, make a little video, post it to TikTok. You never know what's going to absolutely blow up
Right.
and drive traffic to whatever it is that you're trying to sell.
Get some of that sweet viral internet sensation, right?
Literally anything can pick up, and I have no rhyme or reason how it works.
It just happens.
Yeah, I'll make a little post. I'm like, oh my god, this is gonna go do so well, and nothing
Right.
happens.
Nothing.
And then I'll make a video about a failed print that will get like 1 million views.
Right.
And then people are like, oh, where can I buy that?
Right.
And oh, okay. Now I'm scrambling to try and get that listed and up and running or printed to now meet the demand of that.
So I'm gonna just talk about the elephant in the room here because this
There's no
dovetails in
elephants.
this dovetails in really well. So basically what you're saying is build like a 400,000 viewer subscriber
it's
following
So you
on
gotta
YouTube,
spend 10
and then
spend 10 years and
Building
then
a YouTube
after
channel.
10 years. No, thankfully it's not that hard. I do have a little bit of an edge when it comes to publishing something and initially getting views. Like, I'm not going to discredit that at all.
I don't think you can gloss over that fact. I think that's a big advantage.
But what I will say is there are products that I have been selling for like 4 years that I never post about. And they're continuously
Just cash cows, huh? Just kind of.
just continually evergreen, just people are buying and printing thing. Right, and seasonal stuff it's just wild to me. Like right now, obviously we're in October. Halloween's rolling around the door.
It's spooky
I do
season.
Cosplay related Halloween things that are just they sell continually all year, but leading up into October,
This is prime time.
it's prime time.
Yeah.
It's insane.
So talk about that for a second, if you will. So I think some of you have you guys seen? He did was it a short or a TikTok or when you talked about the ghosts that you just sold,
That was a
and you
YouTube,
made
right?
$4,000 and
yeah. So I did make a quick YouTube video about how in 1 weekend I sold over $4,000 worth of a 3D printed ghost to people online.
that's revenue.
That's no.
Yeah,
Yeah, revenue. Yeah.
Okay, not
And then-
including expenses.
No. And it came out to a little over like almost $3,000, I think, between fees and shipping and all that other stuff. It's still very good.
That's a healthy
So-
margin.
That was me piggybacking off of another creator who I saw his video go viral, and I was like, hey, I want in on this as well.
Jump in on the bandwagon.
Sure.
So decided to jump in and make my own post about his thing, which also, like, since his was going viral, mine was getting a fraction of the amount of views that he was getting, but still people were seeing it.
So is that a strategy you would recommend?
That
like
is
riding coattails?
1,000% a strategy. If someone else is blowing up with something, jump on it as quickly as you can.
So you don't necessarily even have to have an original idea.
No.
You're just riding the
Like
wave.
this, okay, so
ride
here's
the wave.
the whole reason why I made my ghost video recently was because I had so many orders coming in that I pushed out my delivery dates beyond October, and people are still buying it. And I'm like, if you have a printer and want to make money, people are trying to buy these right now and get them next week. So you could charge a premium for that, or charge more, or rush order, to get those out to people in advance of what
Right.
some of other people, myself and others, were.
and you
printing.
started doing variants too, didn't you? Like bigger ones, or there's options to.
So it's a boy in space was the one that I piggybacked off of,
Yeah.
and I saw that he was doing tiny ones, and I did not huge. I did 400% scale ghosts,
right.
and so was selling, and they were wildly popular. But my 400% scale takes a good bit longer to print.
Sure.
So you didn't do
than
the
the
business
than the
side of
small.
it.
Yeah. I was like, well, in hindsight, I probably should have stuck with the small ones. You could maximize. That's actually a really smart thing to think through.
Yeah.
When this is how, in hindsight, like if I could compare my sales to It's a Boy in Space, which I don't know what he sold his at, but I know for sure he's able to print way more in 8 hours than I'm able to print. I'm able to print one ghost in 8 hours, and he's able to print 20 ghosts in an hour or
Okay.
8 hours.
Okay.
So the profit side, there's a good bit of offset.
So there's
Sure.
some operational efficiency there. And
That you just need to sit back and think through.
Okay.
Okay, so let's bring it back to business now for a second. So obviously, one way to make money with 3D printing, the low-hanging fruit that I think a lot of us see is like, let's find something that might be popular right now. You are very well known for like a movie is coming out,
Yeah.
and you say, okay, what's in the zeitgeist right now? What's really hot right now? Let's find something to print and ride that.
I literally have a whiteboard in my at my house, at my studio, with upcoming movies that I'm interested in that are coming out in the next 6 months, 12 months that I know of, and I'm trying to plan projects around those. And that's the same thing
Great idea.
for anybody that's interested in, if you have 3D modeling skills, looking at some of those things to try and get
Sure.
ahead of the curve, so that when when whatever that is comes out, you're prepped and ready for that to go. So as people are searching for Thor: Love and Thunder, I have a Thor: Love and Thunder project,
Right.
and, like waiting, ready to go.
So-
or products ready to go.
So I hear
whatever it is.
two really good tips in that. Is one, and we talk about this all the time, Andrew, you can't gloss over the organizational aspect. Like when you're
Absolutely.
doing this for a living,
I'm wildly unorganized. But
well, I think we all are.
all
I think
are.
that's just
Wildly
part of the
unorganized.
maker ethos is the lack of organization. So
Wildly
raging
unorganized.
against that. But starting with something simple, get yourself a whiteboard, get a chalkboard, whatever, write down notes, put it in your phone as you have ideas, and try to help that drive your just do 5 minutes of brainstorming, and you'll be surprised what you come up with. And then you can start pairing out. You said, like, okay, now here's all my ideas. Now what's going to be practical for me to do? The other piece that I think is really important, you said, what are things that I am into?
Oh,
And-
yeah.
And I think that is really important because that your passion then translates over to it. So when you are doing it, you're genuinely excited. So if you're excited about it, I guarantee you there is an audience out there that is also excited about it. And that
1000%.
that very much comes through in your videos. Like when you're doing and it doesn't take much to get started to do
my
a short
God.
or a TikTok.
The best thing in the past few years is the short form content. You don't have to spend a week shooting and editing and making a long
Compiling
content.
footage
You
and B-roll,
take out your
yeah.
you don't need a special camera. You don't need a special microphone. Your cell phones have video. all of my TikToks, my YouTube Shorts, I just use my phone and then use the in-app editors to edit and then slap on whatever soundtrack I can find and those and post it. It's like a 30-second thing.
And we talk about this on the show a lot. We say MVP. It's minimum viable product. The biggest thing, the biggest hurdle is to just start doing something. Don't worry if you don't have the pro camera, the pro audio.
Today?
What can you get done today? How do you get your start?
Even things like your product photos, for me, all of my product photos in my Etsy shop are just from my phone. And I have a nice camera that I record all my videos on. I don't use that for any of that.
Right.
I was like, whatever's the quickest and easiest. And I'm like trying to snap what I think is like a good,
sure, you take an honest effort, right?
Yeah.
But again, it's what can you get done right now in this moment.
I don't want to spend a half an hour to an hour posting. I want to get the listing up and then see how it does.
Well, I guess you have to ask yourself, how much extra does that bring in by putting in all of that time to get that perfectly dialed in look or that photo? In all honesty, probably not much.
When I've spent the time trying to perfect especially a short video, they've never done well. But it's always hey, let me whip out my camera real quick and talk
First
about
take.
When you least expect it is when it does the best.
Here's how to unclog your 3D printer. Oh, I didn't realize that was going to do so well.
Yeah.
And then it was literally, hey, what are you printing in that video? And I was like, oh, well, here's a link to the shop where you can buy one of those.
Right. So the name of the game then is volume in that sense, because you can spend all this time and effort trying to get something out there and it's not going to work. And then something you spent 2 seconds on might. So you need to play the numbers game then to some extent.
And by the way, don't feel like you have to be like me and standing in front of your camera and talking and be all up in here. No, if you don't want to do that, you don't have to. All these platforms, you can literally just post whatever you're of the product and then text. You can write text overlay or talk over it and it'll auto do the text for you.
Voiceover.
You don't have to show yourself at all if you're uncomfortable being in front of the camera. You don't have to do that.
There's a wildly successful YouTube channel I love called This Old Tony, if you guys are into machining and stuff, and it's just his hands. And he's got a huge following and stuff like that, so you don't have to be a face. I think that's a really, really important point to take.
It's intimidating for a lot of people. I mean, it was intimidating. If you go back and watch my first set of videos, I'm like, so hi, we're going to be looking at this Xbox game here.
But
very uncomfortable.
But the message of you can't undervalue the importance of getting some messaging out. Like you are your salesperson. The product when you're starting is you, and you are your product. And we are so lucky to have these tools in this day and age that allow us potential for massive reach.
It honestly, I can't understate how amazing it is to me that literally anyone can go from no following to a massive following with just a handful of posts, or not even the following, but just the reach ability for that in a short amount of I'll go back to It's a Boy in Space, Ben. He started posting TikToks beginning of 2021, I think.
Okay, so
he now has
about a year
ago. He now has almost 5 million followers on TikTok.
That's incredible.
I was like, what the hell? This is insane.
Sure. So obviously we know the power of social media. A lot of you, maybe you're into Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, none. Maybe you want to do email outreach.
By the way, you don't have to use those platforms at all. One thing that I'm in a bunch of different Facebook 3D printing groups, and some of those are about selling things.
Right.
Facebook Marketplace, just trying to sell things that you're making locally, has worked out so well for a lot of people. Or I keep saying I'm going to try it out myself, but selling those ghosts on a local neighborhood Facebook group, you could probably sell a handful of those. Again, you don't necessarily have to sell thousands of dollars of something right off the bat, but if you can make enough money to buy 2 rolls of filament, that's awesome.
It continues it continues the cycle, right?
Sure. Yeah. So finding an audience wherever it may be, whether it's social media, whether it's locally, maybe you're into going to trade shows or craft fairs or your local farmers market. A lot of times, I've seen so much awesome craft stuff, and they're always looking for other ways to bring people into those types of events.
And then, Another big tip that I have for people is there are lots of design. Like, I'm not a 3D designer. I have horrible skills when it comes to that. There are some amazing folks that have Patreons or other options that allow you to download, print, and sell their model. And there's a huge span of things that you could potentially look into.
Sure. So yeah, let's talk about that for a second, just to be clear, because obviously you guys know that not all models that are out there are able to be used for commercial purposes. So you pick items where the designer says, you know what, rather than make these myself, and there's a lot of them out there. You guys have seen the Cinderwind dragons have been really hot. This ghost has been there's a million of it. You did a bunch of Loki horns. You can pay to license these, just like a lot of other things, and that's one strategy for making money with a 3D printer.
Correct.
Let's go ahead. You want?
No, I was going to say I've also I've seen a model that someone has produced, and I will directly reach out to that person, and if they don't have it available to sell, I will try and work out a deal with them of, hey, I'm interested in selling this. Can we do some sort of revenue share?
Sure.
That's a great idea.
I'll give you 10%, 8% of the profits, and
that really hones in on the value of the community, right? That you're going to get a lot further, a lot faster by finding ways to help promote, because now it's in that person's interest as well.
Yes.
For you to sell it because they have skin in the game as well. It's not always going to work, but it's a great.
And for them, it's passive income.
Sure.
They've done the model once, and now I'm every month giving them a kickback.
And a lot of times they'll probably help market it. Like, hey, look at what Uncle Jesse did with our model. You know, Photos Mint has been over at our booth signing, and Charo, if you guys haven't met Charo Zuck, is a prolific Photos Mint model printer and painter, and it's just such a great synergistic thing. I know Photos is just really excited to have him, and you know, so it's neat to see that community help each other.
For sure. There's a lot of that community aspect here of just, again, helping out, sharing, and it's the whole idea here is if I have, basically, I've always been like, if I have anything that I can help get out there for someone else to do similar things or make money with this, I want to share that. There's tons of room for people. It's not like, oh, there's 5 people selling there's a million people selling dragons now, but
so many dragons.
But at the time, it was like, oh, 5 people are selling dragons. I shouldn't. No. There's like, go out there. People are interested in these things.
So, show of hands in the audience here. How many of you guys have a business and have started trying to print and sell things, whether it's on Etsy, on your own website? Wow. Okay, so again, maybe half here. Okay, so that is one strategy. So I want to say, that is one strategy for 3D printing and making money. It's not the only one, right? I know your product is specifically more in support of 3D printing. So you're very obviously related because your adhesives are specifically for 3D printing.
Yeah, well,
so there's tons of ideas that support the industry.
There's a ton of people printing that need stuff to get put together.
What we found was when we got into 3D printing back, in 2012, we were doing prototyping and real engineering, and we always had an issue of like, how do we glue these things together? How do we make this stuff
Super
work?
glue is not great.
and yeah, so what we found was like there was a better way to do something, and we took a step back and we said, wait a second, maybe someone else would be interested in this. And we took a shot. We literally just took a shot in the dark and said, hey, what could we do today that gets this thing out? Like, let's do like a Kickstarter. Let's go to this thing called Earth that no one's ever heard about. You know, maybe we'll talk about our product. And then boom, it blew up. And it all came from, again, working directly with these 3D printers and saying, hey, here's a problem that we're having. Let's reach out to the community, see if other people are having this issue, and it just kind of spiraled from there.
Yeah, so when you guys are thinking about, how many of you are not currently running a business, but maybe thinking about making the leap at some point? Okay, couple show of hands. Okay,
awesome.
Good. So obviously you're probably spending a lot of time thinking about, well, what is it that I want to do, right? You're trying to, and I'm like, how do we give people some tangible ideas for brainstorming things that they can take to the next level?
I wish I had a solid answer.
You are no help. You could just pass.
Well, I mean, again, I think it goes back to what you're passionate about. So for me, I'm I'm passionate about. Originally, I make YouTube videos about 3D printing. Before that, on my channel, I was making Xbox videos because I still play a lot of video games. Like every night, I dedicate at least an hour so I can get on and play Xbox. But when I was interested in trying to make something and sell something 3D printing wise, I was like, what's Xbox related that I'm interested in that I know other people that play games would be interested in? So I was selling controller stands and other little
controllers. Yeah.
And then I had a little someone else designed a steering wheel, and that was again, a revenue share.
Sure.
Where I was like, hey, I want to sell those. Can we work out a deal? And it's worked out. I'm still selling those. I did that 4 years ago at this point. It's still selling those. Yeah.
Okay, good. So one, passion. What is your passion? What is it that you know? What is it you're bringing that's the secret sauce? What do you got?
I think for me, the biggest one is don't be afraid to fail. We learn so much more from failure than we do from the successes. The success and the wins are huge, right? And that's the motivation piece. But, you know, when we were developing our formulas, we failed time and time and time again. And I didn't know if we were ever going to get it right. But we just kept working at it, work that problem, keep trying, and, you know, you'll find something that sticks, pun intended.
I want to jump in for 2 seconds on the failing aspect, because I have a selling failure story. It's real quick.
We got more time. We're good.
Last fall, the Dragons kicked off. I was like, I'm going to sell dragons. I'm going to sell resin 3D printed dragons. And I sold a lot in 1 week, like a lot, hundreds. And so I was like, oh, I've got a bunch of resin 3D printers. I can print on all of them. And I can print one on each, and it takes me about 30 minutes to an hour. Oh man, I'm going to crank this out. Just crank it out in no time.
No problem.
All right, part of it failed. Oh, all right, I got to reprint it. Oh man, all right, now I've printed all these. Now I need to clean all of them. Now I need to cure all of them.
Off the supports.
Then I need to ship them. Yeah, and then it's like some are breaking, and then I'm shipping them out to people, and then they're like, oh, it broke in the mail, and I'm like, I'm never doing this again. That was my big learning experience. I was like, all right, resin, good, maybe not in the volume that I tried to do it in. Yeah.
No, the one of the things that I keep saying that is so awesome about this industry, additive manufacturing, 3D printing, and the tool sets that we have available to us in this day and age is that you have the ability to pivot like that. Right, so if something isn't working, you don't look at that as like I have failed or whatever. It's just like that didn't work. What's next? Repcord got its start just on Amazon selling white labeled filament and some nozzles and some accessories and stuff like that, and that was fine. But I wasn't, you know, that was a side hustle for a period of time, and it took me 2 years to really find something that I was like, no, this is, you know, when we started manufacturing our own stuff. That's when it really kind of clicked and the passion really, and it went from side hustle more like, maybe we got something here. So it may take some time is the other thing. It may not be right away. The things that you think, like you say, are going to do great.
You never know.
You never know, but you only fail once you start moving or stop moving, right? Yeah. So keep moving and pivot, and don't be ashamed to pivot.
I think to build on that, you know, you'll become an overnight success in about 5 years, right? It takes so long to actually
a lot
get
of
somewhere.
Grinding and working
a
at
lot
something.
of grinding. Yes.
You know, it's something where don't get discouraged by comparing yourself to maybe another or a different business or seeing someone else being able to do these things. You know, again, what you're not seeing is all of the effort, all of the late nights, all of, you know, just that grind. Yeah. And you're just seeing a small moment in a spotlight. And just use that as a motivation to yourself, saying, hey, I'm not where I want to be, but if I keep working at this, if I keep trucking along, keep traveling one foot in front of the other, I'm going to get somewhere. Because just as you said, you only fail when you truly stop moving. So don't stop moving.
So absolutely. I think one of the things that's a challenge, I know for me as a maker trying to transition into a business owner, was the intimidation of all of the administrative minutia that we don't want to deal with. Whether it's like, do I need to get a lawyer? Do I need to like fill out tax forms? And I was just like, I don't even want to do. I'm sure a lot of you guys probably feel that too, right? Like that is not what we are passionate about as makers. But the message I would convey is that it's not nearly as bad as you'd think, and two, there are more resources now than ever, you know, for just like how to get started. I mean, we have YouTube, we have all these other things out there that allow us to do that. So don't be afraid to spend a little time, and you will 9 times out of 10 go, oh, that wasn't nearly as bad as I thought.
One other, especially, I mean, they're very much business side of 3D printing. I'm more on the 3D print. Well, one part of it is 3D printing, just to making stuff and trying to sell that. And one question I get a lot from people is, do I need to buy and set up an LLC for myself in order to just sell stuff on Etsy? No, you don't. And I didn't for like 5 years.
Right. Yeah. We talk about minimum viable product all the
Exactly.
time. Just getting started is the thing. And then see, like, how many of you feel like you're planners and you want to like outline the whole thing? Like, I try to play chess way too much, right? You're like, I'm trying to see 20 moves ahead. But the thing is, like, you're worrying about things that may not even be a problem because
Right.
you're assuming that you're going to get to that point. Prove out that you have something first by just getting it out on Etsy. Like, Etsy is a great place to start. It's also very easy to start your own website these days.
Oh,
use
yeah.
Squarespace,
Wildly.
use Wix, use any of those things, and just see how it sells and get yourself some actual data. Nothing will give you more confidence than actual sales data.
Absolutely.
So start selling, because you can do focus groups all you want. You can survey your friends and all this stuff, but at the end of the day, unless they're paying that hard-earned money, it's really worthless, honestly.
Exactly.
I don't want to say worth it, but you guys know what I'm getting at. There is nothing more concrete than that sales data.
And you know, to add to that point, a lot of this stuff can also be fixed at the end of the thing, right? If you get started and you realize that you have something successful, and maybe you weren't keeping track of receipts or expenses or anything else, you can always go back and correct a lot of these little mistakes
That's
or little
right.
errors. And you don't have to be worried that, you know, oh, hey, there's a man coming to get me because I didn't file this correctly, you know, or anything.
I mean, you don't even have to be things that I was overly concerned with. Oh, do I need, like, resin laps, our resin cable that Andrew Sink and I developed? Do we
Yes.
need packaging? Do we need to develop packaging for all this? Like, why are we stressing about this? Let's just see if it sells.
See if it sells
then
first.
Exactly.
we'll look into some of these things.
Yeah.
Yeah. And we've talked about this in past episodes too. We take on a lot of technical debt. So if you guys are familiar with the term technical debt, we talk about it all the
Yeah.
time. It's basically you're borrowing against your future self, just saying, I'm going to fix that problem later. And sometimes it'll come back and really bite you in the ass. But a lot of the time, it's actually a good thing, because you're not wasting a bunch of time worrying about what's not a problem right now.
Exactly, like, because you know you're going to waste a lot of your energy. You're going to waste a lot of that valuable resource of creativity. Of how do I get to that next level by worrying about things that you don't even need to worry about because you don't even know if it's going to work.
Okay, so we've talked about kind of the you can print things on your printer and sell them on Etsy. And yes, that's effective, but I think the bigger message that my takeaway would be, like, find your niche, right? So you can do that and you can make a lot of good money doing that, but you're obviously, if you're just trying to jump in and compete with Uncle Jesse here selling the same ghosts and stuff like that, like, figure out how to
certainly
make it
can.
your own.
Yeah, how do you make it
can.
your own?
Yeah,
I mean,
make
in
it your own.
my ghost video, I was like, hey, print them in different colors. Can you print it even bigger than me? Go for that. Can you do smaller ones or make them the same as mine, but paint the shoes? I don't know.
So-
Differentiate things.
Right. So just to let you know, they let us know the person after us decided he wasn't going to cancel, so we're going to go a little bit longer if that's
perfect.
okay. And if you guys have to leave, we're not offended. That's totally fine. We're just going to keep going a little bit. Make it your own. I want to pivot for a second, because I think that a lot of people, that feels like the lowest hanging fruit with 3D printing. I'm going to print ready
is.
to be sold things, or maybe I'll
is.
print miniatures. There are a lot of people making a lot of good money doing Warhammer, doing all that other stuff.
It is.
Yeah, it is.
Again, just keep at it.
Keep at it. But obviously, using a 3D printer as a tool, so we do a lot of print farming, okay? And we actually have multiple revenue streams as a result. It started because we were printing our own pieces for our own kits that were part of a greater product. So it's a tool set for us to make our brackets and our connectors for the storage boxes that we make. And then when we realized how much capacity we said, like, okay, let's sell some of that overflow, and we print for some automotive customers and stuff like that, and try to position ourselves more on a mass production level. So now we're talking about, really, there are a million different ways you can make money with it, but don't limit yourself to thinking you have to print final product.
Right.
Sometimes it's just a step along the way, and there can be a lot more margin and profit to be had when it's part of a greater system.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, there's a company, you know, that's close to us in St. Louis that kind of did a very similar thing where they got into making filament. And they were doing some really cool things with their filament, recycled. But what they realized was that there wasn't a whole lot of money in it. And they had printers to test their filament. And all of this extra capacity they started leveraging and using for producing parts for other companies that needed rapid prototyping. Yeah. And they started working with universities, funding the research projects or whatever. Like, hey, we need to have this mechanism printed. And so they would just farm it out to them and then send it over. So, you know, these are tools that you can really leverage in so many different ways that you don't instantly think about, I think.
No. You mentioned Resin Labs. I don't know, Uncle Jesse, you guys, is a tried and true hustler. Like, he is always looking to make a buck. He will sell out at the drop of a hat. And we love him so much.
He's looking to sponsor a video.
I mean, he's
running some ERF specials.
Yeah. But you mentioned one of your partnerships with Andrew Sinks called Resin Labs. How many of you guys are familiar with Resin Labs? Have you seen it? It's such a beautifully simple product that came from a problem that you identified in 3D printing.
It was my problem that I had with. I'm hugely a big fan of resin 3D printing and made the shift a few years ago. And I make video content online, and there was no good way for me to make time lapses of resin 3D prints. So what I was doing was trying to set an auto capture on my camera to the interval of the printer, and then I was manually editing photos to try and create a time lapse. I was like, there's got to be an easier way for this.
Yeah.
And I'm not technical enough, and I'm friends with Andrew Sink, who's a very technical individual.
Level 77 wizard and everything.
So we, during the middle of the pandemic, we're over FaceTime. He's walking me through splicing wires, soldering wires. I'm like, I have no idea what I'm doing here. I was like, this isn't going to be a pretty solder or anything like that. I was like, this barely will work. We're butchering 3D printers to try and make something happen. But initially, we were way over-engineering, trying to come up with a way over-engineered product.
Right.
And then sort of a light bulb went off, and we figured out a way to do it much easier.
Right.
That works pretty dang well for some cameras, not all cameras. Sorry, Sony users.
Yeah, and for those of you who aren't familiar with what it is, it's basically just a photocell on the end of a wire that goes into your resin printer, and then every time that, the light triggers, it sends the signal to your camera shutter. So if you have a camera that has a remote shutter, and it's just beautifully elegant and simple,
it was so,
and you've made quite a product out of it.
Yeah, and it's something that we, will bulk develop and then have on hand, and then it's something that just continually sells.
It's evergreen.
The year. Yeah.
Yeah, but point being is your product doesn't have to be made with the printer itself.
Sorry, and then when we officially kicked it off, Andrew and I were like, how many people do you think would be interested in this? I was like, I don't know, 50, 100 people? I don't know. We
surprise.
Sold out of our inventory so fast, and then we're in a scramble to stock up on cables and get those in. But it goes back to what you guys were saying of, it's like, hey, don't get ahead of the cart until you actually start seeing sales come in, then start trying
make it a problem before you make it a problem.
Yep.
I was like, this isn't a bad problem for us to have.
You hear that all the time. Good problem to have. Good problem to have. It's such a cliche, obviously, but it is true. And the basis of that is just like, get to the problem and then solve it. Don't try to play chess too far ahead because you're going to waste a lot of time, right? We already covered that. There are a ton. We at RepCord sell a lot of product that is in support of the 3D printing industry, right? So we use the printers as a tool, but we use ourselves as our own guinea pig. And 9 times out of 10, if it's a problem for you, it's going to be a problem for other people. And there's just so much low-hanging fruit and opportunity for identifying product in there. And don't be afraid to try doing it. We have been very successful modding the CR30 belt printers like that Creality came up with, or offering mods to the Prusa. So look at who is doing it well and think about, is there something I can add to this? That is a fantastic way to come up with product ideas.
I'm going to throw out a little product here. I'm not sponsored or anything like that, but I bought
Hashtag
one.
not sponsored.
I bought one after I saw it on TikTok. The no clogger, the unclogger. Have you guys seen that? It's literally a wire with a 3D printed handle that you can jam. It's a really long wire that you can jam into your printer to help clear a clog, and it's so beautifully simple and stupid that I was like, this is a great idea. It sounds
like it should be an infomercial.
Are they going to be able to? Are they going to be able to retire from this? Probably not.
Right.
But I bet that project right there is helping supplement other things that they're working on, or buying more printers or something.
Sure.
Like that. I guarantee it's not a company. It's somebody sitting in their garage whipping these up and then shipping them out to people.
But that is such a good way to get a start, guys, because it's all about stringing base hits together. It's not about swinging for the fences immediately, because you will learn so much from doing that one. It's funny you mentioned that, because one of the first products we actually made was a nozzle unclogging tool. It was just a series of different. I went to a company in China that was making luthier flutes for filing down like the nut on a bridge of a guitar. I said, hey, can you take the filing off of it, just make it a smooth rod, put it in a package, and then do it in 0.8, 0.6, 0.4. Yeah, sure, we can do that. And lo and behold, we had our first product. Learned a lot in what it takes to source from a vendor, package, all of that
now
stuff.
That's wild to me. Like the whole sourcing of products.
And it's not for the faint of heart.
I know.
Especially in this day and age,
Yes.
I'll tell you that. But like I said, lots of opportunities. Get your start. And like I said, there's no shame in starting as a side hustle and then seeing where you go with it. And you'll be surprised what opportunities come to you as a result of that.
That's
Absolutely.
I think this is a good place to kind of wrap it all up with a bow. I want to thank everybody live who joined us
thank
today.
you guys for
I really
listening.
wish you guys the best. If you like what we're doing, you can please like and subscribe. Follow us on Twitter, YouTube, all that. We do record this every Friday. Feel free to drop in when you can. Be in the chat. We love seeing you guys in the chat, feeding us questions or call in. But you can also find us on any major podcast platform. We're called Maker That Money. And I thank you guys for being here. Have a great rest of your show.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thanks, man.
I get rambling there. Hello.
Oh, Grant is such a drag.
Everything I said was a lie. No.
The AV guy went.
Don't be afraid of what I said, because your thing is awesome.
Did you go see? You've met Johnny yet?
Oh, yeah.
Good. Okay.
I'll take it back.
Thank you.
Don't be afraid of the render.
Thank you. You're giant.
Hello. Okay, so my name is Mike. I'm with AutoDrop 3D. Today I'm going to go through and do a live demo on our browser-based parametric 3D modeling software. It runs all inside the browser. It has a parametric sketcher with constraints and feature history and a lot of the good stuff that you would expect from a standard kind of CAD program. I'm not going to go and talk about some of our other projects like the thermochromatic programmable filament or the cloud-based print system that allows you to monetize your printers and handles all the slicing and stuff. I'm not going to be getting into that. We're going to focus straight up on the CAD today. Keep in mind that this demo is going to be live. We're using beta software, and I'm doing this on a Chromebook with a very low resolution screen. So this is going to be a little bit fun, but hopefully you're able to see what we're doing and maybe take a look at and try it out at home. So this is the browser-based CAD application. We have the main toolbar up here. Normally I wouldn't have it zoomed in this far, and we'd only have a single line of icons up there, but since this is a very low resolution screen, I have it kind of zoomed in. We have a three-dimensional workspace that you can start designing your part in. And like any other parametric CAD software, we're going to start off with a two-dimensional sketch. So we're going to start off with a plane here, and we can create our plane on any orientation, and we could also base it off of like an existing face or a datum, just like SolidWorks or NX or CATIA, anything like that. Once we have our plane created, we can select it and go into sketch mode, which will allow us to create two-dimensional shapes on the plane. So in this particular example, I'll start off with like a rectangle here. And I'm going to start drawing it from the center point of the model and draw it out like that. Now, the sketch itself is adjustable. You can go and move the stuff around. If I click on a particular object, it'll give me the list of constraints that are already on it. So in this particular case, I have a line vertical constraint on this particular object. If I take that off, I can adjust that and manipulate it. I can go through and add in some dimensions. So maybe I want to go and set this to be 45 millimeters tall. And maybe I want to set this to be 60 millimeters long. And there we are. I got some constraints that are on there. You can see that things that are fully constrained are turning blue, so you can kind of keep track of what needs to get locked down and what isn't locked down yet. And if I add one more constraint here, we'll make this thing 100% fully locked down. So there we are. We have a fully constrained sketch. I can go through and hit the little check box here to save that sketch. And now I can use it to create some 3D features. So in this example, I'll just go through and I'll do an extrude. I can specify the length of my extrude here. This right here is the selected face, which is that plane. If I want to go back in and edit that sketch, I can always go and click this little icon here to go back in and manipulate things if I need to. But once I'm happy with it, I can go through and hit the OK there, and now we have a three-dimensional object that was done entirely right there in the browser. Now, if I want to go and continue editing this and add some more features to it, I can go and, for example, click on here and make another sketch right there. And let's just say I wanted to make a circle straight up in the middle here. I can take and draw a circle. And if I pick the center point of the circle and I pick one of the boundary edges of the face, I can say point in the middle. So now that is locked in at that midpoint of that line. And if I want to go and lock that onto the midpoint of this other line, I can pick those two things, the line itself and the center point, and I can do another midpoint constraint. So now this sketch just needs one more constraint to be locked down. And if I set a radius on here, I can set that to, let's just say 7 millimeters, hit apply, and now this sketch is fully constrained. Now, of course, if I don't like that number, let's just say I want to go and change that, I can just double click on that dimension and change that to a different number. And finish off that sketch. Oh, where'd it go? Uh-oh. There we are, okay. Well, you know, this is what happens when we have beta software. I think the sketch is still there, so I'm going to go and try to make a cut with it. And I expect that it's going to, maybe it doesn't work. Okay, that's lovely. Oh, you know what? You know what? I think I know what's going on here. There's something going on where if I only have one line in the sketch, it doesn't export properly. So I just added something else and I made it a piece of construction geometry. Oh, well, maybe not. Well, that's nice. I love doing live demos. Let's just try tossing something else in here, see if we get anything. No. Let's see. Do we get anything? Well, I don't know what's going on there. Let me try a different face. I'll just draw a rectangle on this face here, and we can go and finish that and take and do a cut with that. So this is going to go and cut through the object, and I can set a distance on that. I'm going to set a distance that's going to be farther than the opposite side, and we'll go through and make a cut in there. So that was done right there. I could do some other stuff like adding fillets to an object. So if I go and use the fillet command, I can select some existing edges and it will go and round all these edges for me. Now, the nice thing about having an actual parametric modeler is that I can go back in time and tweak things if I want. So if I go back and I edit this fillet, right? Maybe I don't want that to be a fillet. Maybe I want that to be a chamfer. And maybe I want the size to be 4 millimeters. If I change that, there we are. It went and adjusted the object and it recomputed it. And I can go back in time all the way to the beginning and go ahead and change things. So if I wanted to go and adjust like the size of this edge, you know, maybe I want to adjust that, I can change that and finish off the sketch and then step all the way back through to the end of the part history and have everything update for me. So that's the beauty of kind of parametric modeling, and if you're used to SolidWorks or you know, NX or Fusion 360, this should seem very familiar. But the real beauty here is that this is all running on a Chromebook. So there is absolutely nothing for you to install. You can bring this in and use this in like a school or any other kind of environment that's really locked down. All you need is that web browser and you can go ahead and start doing things. Now, I'll do another demo here where I show the lofting functionality. So we have the capability of doing lofts and revolves. So I'll do a loft demo here. Just start up a clean model. So we can start off and we can create a couple of datums. So a datum is kind of like a three-dimensional axis that you can move around. You can either enter in numbers for it or you can click and drag on things. So I'm going to go and create that datum over there, and I can create a plane on that datum. And I'll make another one and kind of position it over here. And maybe I will adjust the angle on that one. So I will add a rotation to it, and we will get something that's a little bit at an angle there. And I'll create a plane off of that. So now we have two planes. They're on different axes, and I can do something like this where I can sketch on here, and I will draw something, like I'll draw a circle here, and I will go over onto this other plane and I will sketch something. So I'll just draw a rectangle over here for fun. And now that we have these multiple planes with different geometry on them, each one is a single closed loop, we'll be able to go and take and use the loft command, and we will start from this one. So I'll click that one, and then we will end over here, and we will create that loft, which will go in between them. We can do either a sharp kind of a thing like that, and you can actually do this through multiple sections if you want. So if I go and I delete that, and I add one more datum out here, and I will adjust this one's location so that it's a ways away. I can create another plane on here and draw a sketch on that. And I will draw another shape like that. And we can go through each of those shapes. So if I do my loft, I can go from here to here to here. And we can see that it's going to go and smoothly make a solid that goes through all those. If I change that, if I turn that into sharp, it's going to just go and basically do each segment separately, rather than trying to go and do something nice and smooth. And this will allow you to make some nice, really complex parts, maybe like hand grips, things like that that you're working on. So let's see here. I'm going to go and switch gears, and we're going to go and look at the revolve command, because we have the revolve command in here. It's pretty easy to use. So I'll do a revolve demo here, and we'll open up a clean part. So right here, we'll start off with a plane. And I'll go and I'll draw something on this plane. So let's say I want to go and draw something like this. Maybe I want to go and angle one side of it, so I will adjust that so that it's kind of like that. And I'll kind of constrain this thing up a little bit. So I'll here, let's see. Let's put that point on line. Yeah. Well, something is broken with my constraints right now because we had an issue earlier, but that'll be addressed here. Like I said, we're using beta software. But I'll draw something like this real quick. I'm going to use this as my my axis of rotation, and I'm going to make that into a construction line so it turns brown. It means we're going to ignore that for the purpose of the feature, but we'll be able to use this for actually revolving the object. So I'll finish my sketch here. So I have this, which I'm going to revolve around this axis. And I'll use the revolve command. I will pick this as my sketch. I will pick this as my rotation vector. And, you know, I could set an angle on here. So maybe I only want this to be rotated by 90 degrees. If I hit that, and do the OK, we can see that we revolved out an object pretty easily there. And of course, I can continue editing this. Like if I wanted to go and sketch on here and maybe draw something that's going to get subtracted out, I can draw something like this. There we are. I'll kind of constrain this up a little bit. I will draw that out. And maybe we want to cut that off. So I'll just do a cut there. I will give it a length, and we will subtract that away from our object. So you can continue building on your features and doing things like that. Now, one of the other things that we have the capability of doing in here is we have the shell command. So if I draw an object, right, like this, maybe I want to hollow that thing out and make it so that I can, you know, do something else with it. So I'm going to set my thickness there to 5, and I'm going to pick these two faces, because what it's going to do is it's going to remove those two faces and offset every face that's on the inside into it. So we'll do that, and there we are. We just took that object, we hollowed it out pretty easily, and of course maybe I want to make that a little bit thicker. You know, maybe I want to make those walls a little bit thicker. So I will set that maybe to 10 millimeters, and there we are. You can see that the walls are a little bit thicker there. Now, of course, we can do any other kind of features on top of this. We could do more subtracts, more adds. We also support some things like mirroring. So maybe I want to take this object and mirror it. So if I have that, I can pick a mirror plane. Like, for example, I will pick this face as my mirror face, and I will select this as the body that we're going to mirror. And as soon as I hit OK there, now we've gone and we've mirrored that geometry. So hopefully you're able to see here some of the potential that we've been working on here. Like I said, still very beta, but we're looking for people to play around and test with it. And we are releasing the source code on GitHub. So we do have an open collective there where people can contribute to the development. I would be happy to answer any kind of questions that you got, and you know, maybe do some demos that are more related to your particular workflows and stuff that you do. So yeah, I mean, if anybody's got any questions, please give me a holler here. Yeah, no? If not, I can continue kind of just showing off a little bit about what we got here. Yeah. Yeah, so we have export capabilities to STL. So right here, we have this little download button, and that will export an STL model. You can go ahead and use that in any slicer, or if you're in our cloud platform, you can actually, if you have your printers connected to it, you can just send it straight through to your printers. We also have the ability currently, with the application the way it is now, we can import step files as long as they're not too complex. We can import standard step files. We also have the capability of importing directly FreeCAD files. Not everything is 100% supported there, but you can get a very good amount of the bodies and the detail straight out of them. So here, let me just do this. I'm going to go and do a union on these two things. So I'm going to take these two separate bodies. You can see that there's two bodies over here on the left. I'm going to take those two and unite them together. And then, yeah, so see right here how we got rid of that edge there. So now I could do things like maybe I want to go and fillet this, and I could go and pick like these two, and maybe even this guy here. Oh, come on. Why won't it let me pick you? You know what? That's okay. There is another way of doing fillets, and that is for all the edges of a face. So if I pick those two faces, theoretically here, we should be able to fillet all the edges of those faces. So let's cross my fingers here and see if we can get that to work. Oh yeah, yep, that went and threw a fillet on there. Hold on, let's zoom in a little bit here on the side. There we are. So we threw a fillet on there, and it went and it did it to all the edges related to that face. Now, we're not 100% optimized yet. You saw that it took a little bit of time there. But keep in mind, this is all running client-side in the web browser. So, you know, and this is a Chromebook. So I'm not working with a powerhouse here. This is all just very, very easy to do. Now, let me see here. So something else that we have the capability of doing is patterning, right? So if you have a solid body, let me go in. I'm just going to make a plane here real quick. I can do something like a linear pattern. So a linear pattern is going to take the same thing and duplicate it multiple times. So in this case, I will pick that body. My distance, I'll set this to 150 just for ease, and my quantity of 3. Now, when we select our vector, you can select an existing edge of a model. You can select a plane or a face, and it will do the normal vector to that. So in this case, I will pick here, and it's going to come straight from the face as far as the direction goes. And as soon as I hit OK, come on. You know what? I'm going to select a edge here for my direction. Come on. Select that as the direction. I'll select my body here, and let's see what we get. So there we are. I just patterned out some objects all automatically. And keep in mind, this is all right there in the browser. So, and if I want to go back in and edit that, I can tweak that. And yeah, just give it a second here. It's got to recompute a couple things. This is going to become a lot faster here. We're working on setting up the caching to keep the features in memory. Right now, it kind of reruns through them all every time. But I will set this for, let's say, 350 for the distance there. And there we are. We have some objects that have been patterned out, all automatically. Let me go and do this. So I am going to grab a FreeCAD model off of GitHub, and we will import that directly in here. So let's go on to, I don't know, let's do something off of GrabCAD. Okay, go away. Okay, so let's grab something off of GrabCAD. Let's look for a clip step file. I don't know, this one looks cool. And let's see, do we have a step file? There we are. We'll download that real quick. And we do support direct importing of step files, so I'm going to go and just go and find that. And let's see, where did it download to? There we are. So we'll give that a second here to go and cook and go through its whole step file import. Keep in mind, this is a little risky. I never imported this file before, so. Oh, there we are. So it's all imported. There's the object. This came in from a totally different CAD system, and we imported it directly into here. I can do some stuff on here, like maybe I want to defeature this a little bit. So maybe I don't like this hole that's in there, and I want to get rid of that. I can go and select those faces and make them disappear. And hopefully, we'll be left with something that doesn't have a hole in it anymore. Either that or everything catches on fire. We'll see. Wait a second. Well, it looks like that one blew up and wasn't allowing me to delete that face just yet. But we'll go and we'll grab something else real quick here. See what else we got for a FreeCAD file that we can import, or a step file that we can import. This looks fun. I'll leave that one running. Let's go and import this other step file. Okay, so that one imported no problem. I'm not going to go and try to edit this just because I saw how long that last one took, and I don't want to go and spin up something for a long time. But this shows that we have the capability of working with CAD models from other systems and working with that data. You can also take a step file and convert it into an STL directly in this interface pretty easily. Again, I'll throw it out there. If anybody's got any questions or any specific things that you want to kind of see, just go ahead and throw it out.
Can you export a DXF for laser cutting easily? Did you cover that already? If you did, I'm sorry.
Okay, so let's take a look at this. If I have a face, which is a planar face, if I go in and sketch on there, theoretically, there we are, I have my planar face. And if I go into the 2D sketcher mode, because we have a purely 2D sketcher mode, this will allow me to export as both an SVG and a DXF file. We have limited support for dimensions and annotations at the moment. We don't have them all, but we're getting there. And we don't have the capability of importing a DXF yet, but that's in the pipeline. So I have this. If I do this, I can do export DXF. And if I go and I look for a online DXF viewer, keep in mind I'm on a Chromebook here, so literally everything is just straight up on a Chromebook. We can look at this sketch and see what we get, because this was off of imported geometry. And it looks like we got everything but the arcs there at the end. So pretty close. Like I said, beta quality here. Anybody else got any stuff? Questions? Okay, so you were asking if we can export step files. We have the APIs ready to do that. We haven't exposed it just yet, because we have to do some stuff as far as, like, do you want to export as a single body, or do you want to export as a multi-body? There's some decisions that need to be made there. But yes, it's in the pipeline, and we do have the capability built into the software currently. It's just not exposed. How soon do you need it? Okay, what else we got? Anybody else got any kind of questions on here? Keep in mind, this is all on a Chromebook in the web browser, live, with no prep, and I just downloaded random things off the internet for some of these things. So I think we're doing okay.
This is awesome. I like it.
Okay. Okay, so this gentleman was asking about if you can run and save your files and pull them up on multiple machines. Is that what you're asking about? Yeah, so we have this software built into the AutoDrop cloud platform, which is free. You can log in, you can create an account, you can save your models there, and then you can pull them up on whatever machine that you log in on that on. As far as the software itself, we do have the software on GitHub, but without the cloud management features. So you can export your files from the cloud and import them into a session in your browser. So even if we were to go out of business or something, you still have access to your files. But we don't have that specifically built into the open source release. Okay, anybody else got any questions? We don't mind pull requests. If you're interested in looking and playing around with the software, it is up on GitHub. We do accept pull requests. There are some requirements that we have before people can submit a pull request, because we do have both a commercial release and a open source release, so we have to be allowed to integrate into both. But yeah, we encourage anybody who wants to get involved to submit some stuff. We actually had somebody who was doing a DXF export library. We started implementing using his library, and then he came in and was like, oh, well, we can go and implement this and that, and it was great. It was absolutely wonderful because he started going and sending some code our way. So if you're a coder and you like JavaScript, that's what everything is written in. There is a WebAssembly component which is used for doing the geometry operations, but we have a large set of the APIs there exposed, ready for you to use. The two-dimensional sketcher itself, we can use that separately as a component in other things. So there's a lot of capability there, and it is a constraint solver. So probably one of the I think there's only 3 open source constraint solvers for doing this kind of stuff, and 2 of them are GPL, which means it's highly infectious and there's no path to any kind of commercial usage, and ours is unencumbered because we've developed it from scratch. Okay, if there's anything else, or are you telling me to hurry up and get off the stage? Wrap it up? Okay. Yeah, well, thanks. And if you want any more information, pop on over to the AutoDrop booth, and I'm more than happy to talk.
All right. Starting the presentation 5 minutes late. That's what I do. How's it going, guys? All right, so this presentation is going to be all about what to do next if you're just started with 3D printing and you're not like me where you're like, I'm going to build CNC machines in my garage a long time ago before 3D printing was a thing. So, yes. Wait, that's a laser. That's not the button. That's the button. So I had some alternative titles to this. This was one of them, you know, pushing the subtractive agenda. We're here infiltrating. That's a weird 3D printer, and other things people have said to me. That's one of my favorite ones with the milk crate CNC. People come up to it and they're like, how does that print? That seems like it's got a really, okay. All right, so I'm Joe. I've been building CNC machines for over a decade now. Started out, I was a CNC programmer commercially. I couldn't concentrate on my job because it wasn't my hyper focus. So I figured out one day I'm either gonna have to quit or figure out how to like this. And then looked on the internet and suddenly I realized, oh no, I could build these in my shop. And I went home and I told my wife, I'm gonna build a CNC machine. And they looked at me and they're like, you're an idiot. And then a few days later, there was beep, boop, beep noises coming from the garage from old stepper motors, and you know, now we're here. I was a co-host of the Makers on Tap podcast, so if my voice sounds familiar, that's why. And now I'm a test engineer, content creator for Lightburn Software, so your favorite red laser stuff. So, if you're here, you've probably been printing for a while, right? You've probably made some pretty good parts. You're probably feeling pretty good about your design skills, probably feeling pretty good about running machines, but you want to make stronger stuff, potentially more accurate stuff, right? We all make hyper accurate glue guns. That's what we do. But we want to make better stuff. And you're thinking, how? Where do I go next? But most of all, you just really want to start a project that is going to end up being soul crushing. And it's going to make you question whether or not you can do this anymore. Lasers are the place to do that. I've been building lasers at least 8 years, and every time I have to go align my laser, I'm like, you know, maybe I should get a different job. But with diode lasers, we don't have to do alignment, right? The laser travels on the head. That introduces some interesting things, you know, but typically when we talk about diode lasers, they're going to end up a little bit slower than some of the other lasers we'll talk about. We can't do clear materials, clear acrylic, can't touch glass, and a lot of times color affects it. Can't cut blue acrylic. White stuff is kind of hard, right? But the biggest thing is diode lasers, their cost, their ease of availability, everything else makes them deceptively not dangerous, or what you would think would be not dangerous. And diode lasers don't give second chances, right? Even this green laser pointer guy, you know, he's relatively dangerous. And we're going to talk a little bit about that. But the cool thing about diodes is they have very good beam shaping. They can make very dark etching. And there's no alignment. Oh God, there's no alignment. And so that's really nice. CO2 lasers, on the other hand, they're big. They cut very fast. They can cut clear stuff. They can cut opaque stuff. They can anodize certain material, or etch anodized materials. But their beam's invisible. You can't see anything unless it's kind of cutting. And that's deceptively dangerous as well. I remember the very first time I built a laser, it was all open frames and scary, and I was starting the alignment process, and I was like, it's not hitting the tape. Where is it hitting? And I noticed there a burn spot on my wall about 12 feet away, and the paint was on fire. Invisible lasers. A lot of CO2 lasers also require water cooling, especially the lasers that Lightburn supports. We do support RF tubes, which are typically air-cooled, but water cooling is definitely a consideration that you need to think about. And they also require alignment, and I went too fast. Yep, I can go back. Requires tedious alignment of mirrors. And if you ever have aligned a laser and you're really frustrated about it and you would like to come drink and talk about it with me and like share your woes, I love those stories. Yeah. But one of the things that I will say about aligning mirrors is everybody thinks that if you get everything just like kind of right, it's going to be good enough. And boy, once you get it perfect, you realize that good enough is not good enough. And then the last one that we at Lightburn are really excited about, and we've got some running in our booth, is Galvo lasers. Specifically the fiber lasers. Galvo lasers come in lots of different flavors, fiber, CO2, UV, and they all have different strengths. But we're specifically playing with the fiber lasers right now. And what's super cool about those is they're really fast, right? They don't really do good with clear materials, but they can etch just about any type of metal. Ultra high resolution and detail. I recently did a project for a friend engraving their hyper detailed logo in a 5mm area on some hemostats. And like all of the detail was there, and it was really cool. But they also have a relatively small work area. The biggest is usually 300mm by 300mm, and that's all dependent on lens. And then the other side of digital fabrication is also CNC routers. Those are the next most common step into all of this. And then another step up in difficulty often. A lot of times you can get them for like $300 for like the 3018 variants. Those are pretty cool. They're good stepping stones. My favorite thing about them is they don't go fast enough to break anything, sometimes not even fast enough to break a bit. But they are also limited in their capabilities. And then you go up to the next step for a couple $1,000s, and you can get a pretty decent machine from somebody like Shapeoko or Inventables with the, I can't remember, yeah, the X-Carve, thank you. By the way, I've been peopling for like 6 days now, so my brain is not doing the workies anymore. So if I stumble, I'm sorry. And then you can go like all the way up to the current national debt with some of these machines, right? The Axes machines are probably my favorite professional level machines. I used to have one at an old job where 800 inches a minute was totally okay at full depth plywood, just everything was awesome. And they all generally work the same. If you get good on a Shapeoko, you could really easily go up to an industrial level machine. So if you're working for like career building skills, this is a really good way of doing it. I've gotten multiple jobs by going, I have a CNC machine in my garage and I think it's fun. And they're like, you like this? Yeah, please. Yeah, come work with us. That's fine. So how many of you guys work in makerspaces, run makerspaces, deal with makerspaces, right? How many times have you heard this phrase, right? Or somebody comes in and they're like, I want to go do the 3D printer. And you're like, cool. What's your widget? And they're like, you know, this little thing. And you're like, cool, we'll print that for you. 7, 8 hours, you know, you can come back and get it. And they're like, oh, I wanted to take it home now. Lasers are the answer. Literally nothing's faster to go from idea to part to like thing and solution than a laser. But terms and conditions, right? Not everything can be done on lasers. So, you know, a lot of this idea is right tool for the right job, right? So if I just need a square piece of plastic, I can totally make that on a 3D printer. It's gonna take a couple hours. It's not gonna be as good. I can make that square piece of plastic in 19 seconds on a laser. You know, fast. TM. The other cool part about digital fab is even the smallest machines, the smallest 3080, the smallest Shapeoko, they're going to be bigger than our biggest 3D printers. So if you need to make big stuff, you can make big stuff quickly, easily. And my favorite part about a lot of these machines is you can grow with them. So my very first CNC router had a build area of about 8 inches by 8 inches, and I used that machine to build the next machine that had a build area of like 18 by 18, and then I used that machine to build the next machine, and that machine had a build area of 24 by 48, and the next machine, which is now a full sheet machine. So like, they grow exponentially. They're like mogwai when you give them water. And you can do all kinds of cool stuff that we can't do with 3D printers, right? So we can do woods. Sure, we've got wood fill, but wood fill doesn't give the same properties. And people poo-poo wood, especially when you build machines out of wood. But as Joe will tell you, you can build a CNC router out of wood, drop it out of your car, it'll break the car, it'll break the ground, and it won't break the machine because wood is flexible and it does things. We build houses out of it for a reason, right? We can cut metal with CNC machines, CNC routers, CNC mills, CNC lathes, and sometimes lasers if you get the right one. What else? And we can do really cool plastics. You can print PMMA acrylic, but it's like hazardous and it's kind of hellish to print. You can print Delrin, but good luck getting it to stick to anything that's not Delrin, and you have to remove it with a bandsaw. You can do all of these things really, really easily with these digital fab things, and then take your next steps, build your next materials, or build your next things. And we can do optically clear projects. How many times have you wanted to make like a mask or a headlight or something, and you're like, I guess I could 3D print that like really hot with a really big nozzle and then polish it for a whole bunch of hours? Or we could go to the laser and just cut a quick window, cut a quick film, cut a quick whatever. Right tool for the right job. Now right here, I was very worried that all of you would disappear by now, so I wanted to plug this thing that I'm stupid excited about. LightBurnCon, coming soon. I don't know when, we're not entirely sure where. Probably sometime in 2023. If you're interested in all of this, but you want to come do something like this and learn a whole bunch of things about the software we make and things, keep an eye out for this. Also, I know we need a name, so if you got ideas on that, I'm open. Danger. This is one of the things we don't talk enough about, right? Lasers don't care about anything. They don't care if your machine goes wavy. One of my favorite problems that I've ever had is my gantry sagged and the light didn't. And that created all kinds of interesting reflections that were dangerous as heck. But the biggest thing is, lasers don't care what optical density your safety squints are. If you do this, it's going through. It doesn't care. And they don't give second chances. A YouTuber that reviewed high-power laser pointers, like Wicked Lasers, once said that lasers should be treated like loaded handguns. You only point them at what you want to shoot and nothing else. Laser cutters are the same way. The scatter's dangerous. The laser itself is dangerous. The fumes they create are dangerous. Everything needs to be thought out. And when you buy a $300 Orator, they don't tell you that. And half the time, those goggles that they send you don't have an optical density printed on them. And if they did, I'm not sure I trust it. You only get one set of eyes. Also, we got this. Diode lasers have a wavelength of 380 to 405. Lots of those goggles, kind of skirt around that you get sent. So it's really, really, really important. OD6 Plus, we like OD8 at Lightburn. Even then, don't look at the laser while it's running, whatever. But the biggest thing is never, ever, 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 ever run a laser unattended. I've had 2 laser fires in my life. Both times, everything was running fine. I stepped out to the bathroom right next to my shop to take a quick break, came right back, laser fire. And when they ignite, they go fast. And often our lasers are built out of flammable materials. Very rarely do you get cheap CO2 cutters that have tempered glass windows. Most of the time, they're acrylic windows. Acrylic is incredibly flammable. All kinds of things. Always have a fire extinguisher mounted within reach. Nothing's worse than your buddy moved the fire extinguisher, you're trying to put it out, and you're like, oh no, where's my fire extinguisher? Or you kicked it over while you're trying to get it and it's like rolling away from you as your garage is igniting. You know, all of these things never happened to me. Laser fires are kind of like motorcycle accidents, right? It's not an if, it's a when. Even the best of us have had laser fires. Both of these incidents were professional shops. Both of these incidents were people running the lasers, but had just stepped away to look at another machine or go get some material or something like that. And the ignition is quick, it's powerful. The worst part is a lot of times when you open the door to put the laser out, the flames burst up because they get a quick rush of oxygen. The laser fire on the right was actually Pooch from RepRap. It was acrylic in the bed, had ignited from just burn through. And it wasn't even the acrylic that was in the catch pan. It was acrylic that was in the honeycomb tray that had popped through that they didn't notice. Laser fires are quick and they happen fast. The one on the bottom was posted on Thunder Laser's website. There's a whole video where you can watch it happen. There's a guy running it. You know, it comes up quick. It comes up really big. So they're not an if, they're a win. Be ready. All right. So we spent a lot of time talking about what digital fab does well. Sometimes it doesn't always do well. 3D Systems used to always like to say complexity is free with additive manufacturing. And anyone who is an additive manufacturing engineer goes, don't say that. That makes it hard. It's way cheaper with 3D printing. So I used to work in a prototype shop for a Fortune 50 manufacturing company. And we get brought things like this all the time by design engineers to machine, right? So if you're going to machine this, how do you put that hole in the middle? They don't make 90-degree drills. They don't. And we get brought these things by engineers that had never made anything, and they'd say, well, I did it in CAD. Why can't you do it on the machine? And I'd say, well, I guess we could like cut it in half and weld it back together. Well, that's not going to meet spec. Your weld won't be good enough. Well, design it better. I recently got sent a part that looked like this to machine. It was designed by somebody who was who had 3D printing in mind, but they wanted to machine it. That little thin bit is about 2 millimeters. The was about 2 inches long, huge stick out. There's like 70 different operations to hit all the different things. It's not a good candidate for traditional manufacturing, at least the way they wanted it. But maybe we could do it with bending sheet metal. Maybe we could do it with, I don't know, something different. All right. And then we have this stuff. This is, oh my God. Help me, Joe. Generative design, thank you. You know, you define some constraints, you tell it where you want the strength, you tell it where you need the precision, and then it makes this cool organic skeleton thing that we could only ever 3D print, right? Some of the generative design programs out there, you can define operations. You can say, I'm going to make this with a 3-axis mill, and it might look a little normal. Or I'm going to make this with a 5-axis mill, and it like gives you some things that you can attack from different sides and some places to hang on to. But, you know, when you're trying to make weird stuff like this, 3D printing is still better. So it's a right tool for a right job problem, right? But sometimes you only need 2Ds. 2D design is a lot less prevalent than it used to be. When I started in all of this, everything was 2D AutoCAD. There were all kinds of 2D AutoCAD clones, and we all designed in it. And you know, I just knew that those little holes right there had a 3 millimeter depth, and I could assign that. You know, or you did like 2 or 3 views, so you could get all of those things. But when you're moving over to a digital fab process like CNC routing or laser cutting, a lot of times that 2D design is way easier to deal with. So we take a 3D design out of Fusion 360 or SolidWorks or I can't remember the name of the guy that was just presenting, but boy, his software was pretty cool. We take a 3D design out of that, we create a 2D DXF, and we bring it into these CAM programs like Cut 2D or Lightburn, and they're just way easier to deal with. My favorite part about all of this is graphic designers, they hate us so much because we'd expose all their secrets, right? So if you're going to make a circle with a hole in it in graphic design, we make a filled circle, and then we take another filled circle and we dump it on top of it, and we make it the background color, right? And then they send it to us as digital fab people, and it looks like this. We hid their secret underneath that white circle. That little, you couldn't see that before, right? Right? But, is it gonna work? Yeah, okay. So where it really bites you is designs like this. If you walk by the Lightburn booth and you watch the little promo video, you'll see this design getting etched onto a water bottle. I thought this design was so cool, right? My wife is in love with Tokidoki. I had this awesome water bottle. I was gonna make him this awesome present. And then I bring it into Lightburn and it's this hell. You know, all of those characters were brought in as assets, but because they're layered vector designs, you can't see all of the things that are going on in the background until we bring it into a program like ours that only cares about the edges, right? So we have to think about how we're going to do the design. In a lot of the graphic design tools out there, like Affinity 3D or Affinity Design and things like that, they don't do things that we need as digital fab engineers, like intersection trim, Lightburn, Adam, thank you. You know, so we have to figure out ways around that. Other problems that you're going to run into. Parts don't stick to the build plate in the machining world, so you have to figure out how to hold on to them. Fixturing is the hardest problem in all of this if you're machining things. There are people who spend their entire lives dedicated to figuring out creative ways to hold on to things so you can make things. Vices are one way. Little toe clampy dudes are one way. Little pushy clamp guys are another way. But all of those have an issue. Those all stick up above the part. They all involve figuring out clearance, and they all will break your end mill off when you wrap it across them. This is my favorite method to fixture things for CNC routers. Just put some screws in it. It fixes all of your problems. Most likely your end mill might survive cutting one. Hardened screws are interesting. It's always fun to watch it go like ripping through some MDF, and then all of a sudden fire shoots out, and you're like, whoa, oh. Ah, you're still cutting, all right. The bane of laser cutting, pre-warped material. So this causes all kinds of problems, right? Your parts might be warped at the end, they might cause assembly issues, but the biggest problem with warped material in laser cutting and I guess CNC routing is the fact that that change in elevation will change your focus. So things that are cutting perfectly because they're perfectly in focus, and then it goes up like this, you know, suddenly you have like a Sharpie wide line and little spots in your materials that didn't cut all the way through. So we have to figure out creative solutions around that. My favorite way is 1/4 inch steel plates, like 3-inch wide. They're really cheap to get. Most of the time your focus distance will clear them so you can like drive right over them and they never matter. But that's one of the ways that I deal with that on a regular basis. One of the stories that I have from my career as a CAM engineer is there was a guy that ran our additive manufacturing lab back before additive manufacturing was 3D printing. And he came in and he sat with one of the old graybeards and he said, Jim, I'd love to learn your job. I'd love to learn how to program CNC machines. And we said, okay, we'd love to teach you. He said, I think we could probably figure out how to do that in like an afternoon, right? He'd never touched a machine before, never understood, but it was such a departure from the machines that he was running, the Stratasys machines, the 3D Systems machines, that he just loaded things in, oriented them right, figured out like, boop, and then made sure there were no voids, and boop, print. So with CNC routing, and to an extent with lasers, all of our operations are driven by feature geometry. The shapes of our parts, the areas that we want to cut, a lot of times we'll use those shapes multiple times. It's not just as easy as loading your part in, setting your orientation, and hitting go. But it's also not that scary. You just have to give it a little bit of thought. So that's what I got. I'm awful proud of myself. I kept it within mostly time. So yeah, I'm fairly active on most of the socials. Lightburn's pretty active on most of the socials, and you can come find us and see cool stuff that we make. But what kind of questions do you guys have for me? Water.
I just like to make you run. I know. Can you hear me? Okay, good. So, you know, I've done 3D printing and I'm interested in laser cutting, but what I'm curious about is it seems like laser cutting will always be limited to 2 or 2.5D. Is there any research being done that would bring about 3D laser cutting?
Yes. There's some interesting stuff being done, or that has been done in the past. It was called laser origami, where basically they had like the part lifted up, like elevated in specific ways, and then they would defocus the laser so it would just heat the plastic, and then they'd go like raster over the edge, and then all of a sudden it would fold in a very focused spot. That was really neat. There's some stuff going on. We have 3D etching in Lightburn, where you can take an STL, make it into a grayscale image, and then etch it with very fine changes in elevation. We've got some coins as examples in our booth if you want to check them out. But I think that...
Yeah, so I can actually speak a little bit more to that. As somebody who does a whole bunch of silicon fab, we use that for like basically on the MEMS scale. So not on a macro scale where you would be building parts in inches. We're talking more like micrometers. But we do use processes like what he's describing to actually get full like 3D geometry like you would be able to do on a mill. Now, granted, the machine that does that is a $250,000 laser cutter in a tier 1 research university in a lab that like 4 people have access to, but doable.
It's research, right?
It is research. It does not have to make money. That is the beautiful thing about research. Does it run Lightburn? At Lightburn Dev Team, hit me up. You guys want to play with a really, really, really stinking cool laser cutter? We can make that happen.
We always do.
Yeah.
The other part of that is like if you wanted to do something like these pockets, you could relatively easily do that with just a filled operation and a bunch of passes. I've definitely done that in the past where I like needed a pocket to recess a bolt head, and I was like, all right, we'll just do this and it will be, you know, somewhat to depth. It's kind of guesswork, especially if you're doing anything in wood, but like that stuff does exist.
So my other question would be, you mentioned work holding. Has there been anything, and warped parts, any kind of cool stuff with like autofocus like you have on a camera, but for a laser cutter, or vacuum hold down?
Vacuum hold downs are a thing, not typically in lasers that are accessible to us, but they do exist. I mean, usually you want to be able to like have some background, but there's a company in California called Light Object that makes laser cutter parts. They have an autofocus head that uses a time of flight laser on the head to like, and you know, that material would be no problem for that head. Those heads are also really common in the industry level lasers for like sheet metals and things, where you need like very, very accurate focus to be able to penetrate. So yeah, that stuff's there. It's getting better. Usually it's off control, so like somebody like Lightburn would have no access to it. It's like, you know, handled on the machine side, but yeah.
Thank you. No, because okay, I'm so scared of the speaker. I just wanted to mention, just back on the 3D side of things, this might be obvious to a lot of us in the audience, but not necessarily everyone. You can cut two-dimensional parts and then assemble them into a 3D object. That might be obvious to most of us, but I just thought I'd point that out for anyone who isn't familiar with the technology. That's a really good use case, and there's lots of like online generators and stuff for boxes and little part boxes. Yeah, all sorts of little 3D things. So you can make 3D using 2D material. Yeah, just wanted to point that out.
Yes, so you can do like 3D stack-ups of 2D materials to do some really cool things. I've made like prototype go-kart bodies out of plywood doing that. And then the box generator that Billy mentioned is called boxes.py, and it's amazing, and it natively generates Lightburn files now, so that's pretty neat. So
with the time of flight or something like that for the figuring out the depth, could you also use LiDAR while you're actually doing the cutting to say do the pocket to an exact depth?
I don't know. I haven't seen anybody do that. That would be... What? Yeah. Yeah, but not monitoring like the depth of the cut at the time. So there would have to be some interoperability with that, which, as far as I know, doesn't exist. But in the inaccessible space, who knows what industry's doing?
Hi there. This might not be possible, but the thing about subtractive is people want to bring in stuff that they have around their house, like cut up pieces of an old toy to make an ornament. Is there any way to know what plastic it is? To know if it's safe? Because a lot of stuff can't go in the laser.
So with lasers, to know if it's safe, there is such a thing as a flame test, where you scratch off the material onto, I think the preferred material is copper, but you can also use a nail, and you just get a little bit of it on the nail and hit it with like a propane torch. If it burns green, it's got chlorine in it, and it will kill you. We didn't talk about that.
That's why I'm concerned about that.
The other thing that Billy brings up a lot is a really common project in the diode world is to paint ceramic tiles with white spray paint and then etch them, and then they turn black. That's because there's titanium in that plate. And basically every really good paint has some sort of heavy metal in it. Don't breathe it.
Oh, can I ask a follow-up question then? So at my makerspace, we just say you have to use spray paint that is marked that it's acrylic spray paint. Like, I assume there's only certain spray paints you could put in the laser.
You said that it's marked with it's acrylic spray paint?
Yeah, if you get artist spray paint, like people actually used to make murals, it says on it that it's acrylic. And so I figured that was safe since acrylic is safe. And I don't really know if other spray paints are safe.
It depends on what the colorants are. Typically, it's the colorants that are toxic. So like titanium powder is white, so that white paint has titanium in it. A lot of times, red and yellow paint have cadmium in them. So just because we don't use lead paint anymore doesn't mean we don't use horrible paint anymore. So, real quick, before I lose you guys, I want to challenge everybody to think about your current processes and how they might be changed if you had a CNC router or had a laser cutter in your tool chain, and how you might think about going about things differently as you're creating stuff. So, go ahead, Nick. Oh, okay. Does anyone else have questions? Okay. Well, with that, thank you, Nick, for giving me a stage to ramble on for a little while, and thank you guys for hanging out and asking good questions and listening. So.